Hello, my friends. All right, let's get your strumming better immediately. And picking, honestly, it's the same mechanism, which is what I'm going to go over in this lesson. I had a video, a part one, essentially. I'm not really sure if I'm considering this a part two, but I'm going to put that down in the description because it got an influx of views in the last month. So I want to do a follow-up and some things that I'm working on with clients. If I have a client from a label and they need to either showcase a song or do an audition and they want to do it on guitar, or the label wants them to do it on guitar rather than keyboard, we need to get them to sound fluid and have a really nice strumming pattern, strumming mechanism, nice fluid movement, right, without sounding too stiff. Right, and make it sound honestly like they've been playing the guitar for longer than they have. Now, usually they could form the chords fine, right? They just have this like, right, this sort of rushing in at like a 60% volume, 60% musculature, and we want to drop that. Now, this goes back to a lot of the picking stuff that I work on, and like I said, it's the same mechanism. With the picking, when we grab the guitar at first, right, this feels. I could feel that, right? If I pick up the guitar for the first time and I just do this, it feels like nothing. But that's where we want to start with our picking, right? And then we can grow. I can do cool. But if I need to do something fast, right, I'm gonna need to get down to this almost like zero movement or zero musculature, right? Really, really light and small movements. And I want to do the same with strumming. What's funny is even if we got that, right, our strumming would still be, which, sorry guys, there was a truck, is an appropriate way to strum, right? The problem is not for everything, and not if we really want to start building sort of an emotional dynamic range. So let's go into starting the same way that I really like to start my students on picking, being really relaxed, and how we're going to build speed is we're going to do the same thing with strumming. Now, this all came about when we were using Good Riddance by Green Day, right? As sort of like a marker, because it has this sort of picking pattern. Now, this is the thing. That picking pattern isn't, if you listen closely, it's not rigid, right? And you can see my hand if I'm doing that. I'm very rigid, right? What I want to do is get a little bit more movement in there, okay? So if I have, right, couple different strings being hit at the same time, but it follows the same pattern. Now, if you watch him do it in the music video and live, he does anchor here, and he's sort of giving it a little bit of that. Right, sounds almost the same, right? You're gonna hit a couple of extra strings, which is totally fine because it isn't a rigid picking pattern. What I love about that is it moves into this sort of like hybrid picking strumming into a full-on strumming as the song continues to go. And that's where I want to start. So let's take the pattern out of it and let's just strum the chords, okay? With this anchor here, and I'm sort of using this, not my elbow. Okay, it's really, you just stay on one chord even. The goal is, can you do a down, up with that nice and smoothly? Can you get that? If not, you're squeezing the pick a little too much and you're making the pick a little stiff. It wants to have, for your picking, it wants to have a little bit of this like, right, almost like baseball cards and the spokes kind of thing, right? Old school thing. And that'll get a little bit loose. It does face a little bit down, right? And it when you're going down, or it faces up when you're strumming down, and it faces a little bit down when you're strumming up. But if I'm real rigid, I'm gonna have to go from here to here. Right? And you're gonna see that a lot in some people's strumming. That just means that they're a little too tight. Loosen that pickup. The best part too is if you loosen it up, I'm not going to add any more musculature. I'm just going to squeeze the pick. That can add so much more volume to it. So pick a chord, okay? Anchor here, just like you're picking. Okay, but you're going to strum up and down, or this pattern that we were doing. That's not how I recommend strumming all 6 strings, right? That's giving us the control. We'll start from there nice and light and just go into, that's got a little bit more wrist to it, right? It's the perfect place to start. From there, we can start adding a little bit of volume. Now, if we get really loose with the pick, right? We got this wrist, our wrist is sort of going down and up, and then it's also giving a little bit of a turn, right? Of a doorknob almost, right? So we're sort of down and like turning a little bit in, which is great. That gives us a little bit of extra velocity on the way down, but that also sets us for the way up. And we don't have to worry about it too much. If we're nice and loose, add a little bit of volume. Just squeeze that pick just a little bit more. Feel where it starts to get clunky and starts digging into those strings, right? And that just means that we're not fluid anymore. Go back, start, get a little louder, squeeze the pick a little bit more. Right now we could start adding that little bit of elbow in. That's how we get control, and then we can increase the volume as we need to, right? Into the what I love about it is you're going to have songs where you want that dynamic. And if we're always coming in at this sort of like 50, 60, 70% volume, it's going to be really hard to scale it back. Those small muscles haven't been trained and haven't been controlled to be able to get that sort of dynamic. Now, the last part of this, once you get comfortable with this sort of like continual down up, anchor, continual down up, it sort of comes a lot of your thumb is doing a lot of that push down, and then your first finger, but then the rest of your hand is almost like sort of spreading back out, right? Down and out, right? Unanchor yourself here. Cool, we're still loose. Grip that pick a little bit more. Add a little bit more elbow, and then we can go from there. One really great exercise is, do I have the control that I think I have? Is pick a chord. Let's just say the C chord. I don't necessarily like the G because it's really easy to just strike that 6th string. But let's say I have the C chord, right? And I do. How much louder can I get? Can I get faster? Now, if you rewind and look at that, the pick isn't that much different than the strum. There's not these two completely separate mechanics basically when we're playing. So I want you to think about that. Now, can you change the strings? It's really hard. I love this though. 5th string, 4th string, 5th string. Now we're starting to gain some control. Can we add speed? Can we add volume? Can I bring the volume up? And back down again. How are we able to control these? Because we're not in the car, getting out of the car, going to the bike, getting off the bike, going back in the car, getting out of the car, going back to the bike. We're it's one fluid movement, right, that we're able to control. And how are we able to control it is by controlling the smallest muscles possible, right, to help us with those small movements, right? Small movement, big movement, small, right? We need that light and small control to eventually build up to we're not even using our wrist at all. If you watch the Nirvana Unplugged, Kurt has a really good way of doing this, like with some of his power chords. And even like if he wants to get louder without losing control, I notice a lot of that. He'll grip his pick real hard, anchor himself down here, and you'll see a lot of movement. But that's building from nothing, essentially, right? This like super calmness, right? Pick grip, and adding a little bit more into it, right? Rather than coming from an uncontrolled, like, right, and not having the control that he needs to get some of those sort of 3-string, 2-string power chords and some of the melodies out that he needs to. So in that Unplugged, when they show his right hand a lot, you'll see a little bit of that. I really like in the music video for Time of Your Life that, you know, he's doing that in the beginning. And the funny thing is, if you watch it, he's a lot looser than it is on the recording. You know, when he's playing it too, he looks a lot looser. Like it would be a little bit more like, right, rather like maybe even hitting some of the strings that aren't supposed to be hit as far as the recording is concerned. But you'll just see him be a little bit looser than you know, that really stiffness. So try it. Go through the steps. I promise this works. It's so difficult when we're talking about picking and when we're talking about strumming to go from heavy and bring it down light. The best part too is you don't need to stop doing what you've been doing, right? You're just sort of integrating this lighter way of doing it with the least amount of musculature and the least amount of motion as possible, and then building it back up to where it is, which is really great. So you don't have to completely scrap everything that you've been doing. But it is all about, it is sort of this less is more. And a lot of people have a problem with sort of over gripping and squeezing, which does make sense. And I say this in my beginner videos, you know, it's like the guitar, we could feel that if we grab it, right? But we don't want to grab it. It's sort of like this like light, almost like a pinching thing, right? Same with this, we grab that pick and we could feel those strings, right? But that's not how we want to start. We want to start light. But to somebody who's not playing the guitar, that feels like nothing. If I took someone's brain, right, and put it into my head, right, and they just started playing the guitar and just did, I wonder, like, it would probably feel like nothing. They don't have how would I guess like experience to sort of have that sensory grab of like that, you know, that idea of sort of getting down to this 0 point, as I always call it. So try it. Let me know how it goes.